Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's What's Up Wednesday, where we are joining you live on Facebook and LinkedIn every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern Time to talk about our upcoming 22nd Annual International Human Trafficking and Social Justice Conference, hosted virtually on September 17th through the 19th of this year. I'm so excited. I just wanted to say this may look a little bit different how it's being posted today. We are actually not joining you live, even though I just said we usually do. We are recording this the evening before because our special guest here today had some previous engagements, but she still really wanted to join you and talk about everything that she's doing. But don't you worry, I'm not going to edit this recording at all. So you are going to get us in our beautiful live versions, even if it's posted a day later. So today we have Carrie McGuire, special guest on with us. Dr. Carrie McGuire, excuse me. You are a PhD now. So Carrie is a therapist in New Jersey and a clinical assistant professor at Widener University. So hi, Carrie. Thank you so much for joining us and taking time out of your schedule to talk to us today.
Thank you. And so, sorry about the not being live thing. This is because of jury duty, and it is not something I accidentally scheduled. So I'm glad we could put it in.
Yes, me too. Well, yeah, I mean, we all have to do our duty sometime, even if we don't enjoy it, but yeah, still making it work. So today we're going to be focusing on our direct service related presentations at the conference. Last week, we talked about our research presentations, and the week before, we talked about our programming related presentations. So as you've heard me say many times, we are a very diverse conference with a lot of sessions to choose from. One of those being about direct service in the anti-trafficking and social justice field. But before we get into that, Carrie, I'm going to give you a chance to introduce yourself a little bit more and tell people about the work that you do.
Okay, yeah. I live in Philadelphia. I have been working with trafficking survivors since 2013. I first got to know GATS through the conference when I was getting don't have a PhD, I have a DSW, so a little different.
Oh, excuse me, sorry. Yes, but still
okay.
doctor.
That's okay. Yeah, more clinical than most PhDs. But yeah, and then I did my research in domestic minor sex trafficking and complex trauma, and actually found the conference when I was still in school and have been coming since then. So yeah, now I work in private practice and teach mostly full time, and stay as connected as I possibly can.
Yeah. So even though you are in more of an academic role now, you do still very much wear a clinical hat. And so talking about direct service, for those of people who might not really know what that entails, it can sound very broad, or they may not know exactly what that means. So can you talk about a little bit like who these people are, what they even do, and why we have this topic? What's the importance of having direct service providers at a conference like this?
Yeah. So, I mean, this is like a passion point for me, because I think more direct service people should be informing the research, right, than just the people who are in the academic settings, right? I don't think I'll ever not be in direct service, but direct service really is everything from boots on the ground to administrative work in nonprofit to working, clinically one-on-one or in groups with clients. So it's really important that our fields kind of all work together, academia, survivor voices, and direct service, because it's really just different perspectives, and people who are actually implementing the evidence-based practice or the different interventions need to talk about how it's working, or what things can be different, or how we can. That's sort of how I got into academia in the first place. I was like, we're just out here doing our best, not really. And there's just not really a lot of research that says how we should be working with these populations, at least then anyway. So it's really important that direct service practitioners are in these conversations, are listening to and presenting, and just really connecting with people across different systems, because everyone's voice is really important in figuring out the best practices and like the best interventions and the best way to connect with survivors and help them in the best way we can.
Yeah, that is so important. Like the connection between both of those groups and having spaces where people can talk and collaborate and network. Last week, Dr. Celia Williamson was on talking about the research presentations, and she was emphasizing kind of a little bit about what you said, that direct service providers can just not, want to do the best thing, but not know what that is and how research can influence what our evidence-based practices or what the best thing to do is. And so really that hand in hand work between direct service providers and researchers is so important. And I'm glad that you as a clinician and a researcher like are also seeing that. And that is what kind of brought you into wanting to research and learn about this more, was your direct service experience. So yeah, thank you for that. And that really went into what Celia had to say. So if you didn't see Celia's last week, you should go, and anybody who hasn't seen it, go back to our videos from last week and watch what she has to say, because it really ties into a lot of what we're talking about now. And I love that. So, but you've been involved in our conference for many years. You even touched on that when you were in school learning about all of this. So talk a little bit about your experience with this conference, and why you keep coming back year after year. There must be a reason, and hopefully you have enjoyed it. So what has your experience been like?
Yeah, well, my first experience was driving from New Jersey to Toledo. So I won't forget that drive. And I think my first year I was put in like one of the biggest rooms I've ever been in. And I was definitely like, okay, we're doing this. And I think my feedback was funny. It was like, slow down. Like it was just very good for me because again, I was really just like in the direct service world, right? And I was stepping into this new space of doing presentations, and I just thought like the community was really great. That was the first time I did a lot of networking in this field outside of New Jersey, which I thought was really cool. And I like the social justice, human trafficking connection. And yeah, I've been coming back because I personally really like to attend other speakers conference, other speaker presentations. And so I just have been going, I think shortly after it went online, I think because of COVID. So I've just been, I haven't made the drive since that first time. But I have joined GATS since then and have done the Emancipation Nation, and I'm working on a couple other things with different, and the networking group through GATS. So, and me and Sherry and Amanda are working on a different thing that we're going to present on. So it's really brought me a lot of support and connection around, my passion, which is helping survivors that I don't have at my institution, right? Because I'm the only one that's really in this field. So it's been probably the only conference I've attended I think there's maybe 1 year I missed, but because I couldn't come, but every single year since then, I think it's just been great.
Well, we'll forgive you for that 1 year that you didn't come, but I'm glad that you have still come year after year and even made the drive when it was in person and still stuck around through our virtual conference. But I'm glad that you've been able to make those connections. And I love seeing that come out of a conference like this. So you mentioned it a little bit, but you are presenting 2 sessions at this year's conference, working hard. So you have a solo session that's titled The Importance of Relational and Reflexive Supervision in Trauma Therapy. And then your other session that you mentioned, you have co-presenters Dr. Cherry Mays and Amanda Stuckey. That one's titled Gaining Competence, Confidence, and Humility when Working with Individuals in Human Trafficking. So those sound like great sessions. I know you're going to cover a lot of great information, but if you want to give us a little sneak peek or a hint into what you're going to be talking about during those sessions, I think that would be great just to hear what you plan on speaking about.
Yeah, so me and Cherry and Amanda have been working on just this idea of how do mental health professionals, because I'm from the social work side and they're from the counseling side. So how do we streamline or create a way that people can gain competence in working with trafficking victims, so that victims and survivors can look for people who have this background knowledge? So it's really about supporting survivors so that they know who they're kind of working with, and also creating sort of a community for people who are in this field to continue to learn, like continuing education together. And our ultimate outcome is to create just more consistency across the different mental health professions, so that we feel like we're providing the best care and that there's consistency and reliability between us. And then my separate one is on primarily on supervision. So yeah, working with trafficking victims and survivors throughout my career and in my doctorate, I really focused on this idea of complex trauma and trying to bring light to like this. It's not really a diagnosis, but well, not in the DSM, but it's a complex PTSD is I think a better way to think of our population that we're working with, and so I've translated that into a lot of different populations that I work with. Like a lot of people that I work with have trauma, right? And a lot of students and social workers working towards licensure are working with trauma. And so I have this sort of way of approaching supervision. And I also co-direct the trauma certificate program at Widener. And we're really big on supervision groups and kind of this relational, reflexive kind of experience when working with trauma, just because it's like, more tense and requires a little more awareness from the mental health professional, and really encourages people to lean into that instead of like refer out because of trauma, which is what a lot of our people who have experienced human trafficking hear from clinicians is like, I don't touch that area, right? So this is about helping people gain confidence and also like just really navigate why there's discomfort in certain areas of trauma.
Yeah. Wow. That's super interesting. I love that there's so many layers that you're going to be talking about it too, because trauma, especially complex trauma, is not just like one layer or one note, and it's not like, one size fits all. So there's all these different things that you have to take into account. And I also love the title of that session you're co-presenting with Cherry and Amanda about those three different words I think are really important, like competency, confidence, and humility. And I think all three of those work well together, and you can't just try to do one successfully without the others. So I think that those sound really interesting and are going to be great sessions. So if you guys listening want to hear more about what Carrie is going to be presenting on, make sure that you are registered for our conference. You can register on our website, which is traffickingconference.com/register. So I do want to highlight a couple of the other direct service related sessions at the conference. We have a lot of them, and so it's great. We do have 110 breakout sessions at this year's conference. It's so many to choose from, so exciting. So I'm just going to be listing a couple of them, but I do want to remind you that if you have registered for our conference at that link below, you have access to the recordings of the breakout presentations. So if there's some that you can't watch live, then you can watch those for up to 3 weeks after the conference. So it's a great way to really get all of the information that you're trying to glean or maybe take back to your organization or your practice that you're in. So really encourage you to register for the conference so then you can get access to all of those sessions. But so some of the sessions that I want to mention that are related to direct service are Dr. Shobana Powell and Ashante Taylor-Cox are going to be speaking on misdiagnosed and misunderstood, the intersections of mental health, cultural humility, systemic oppression, and human trafficking. Then we have Alicia Tappan, who will be presenting on From Victim to Warrior, the need for long-term services. Helen Stiver is also going to be talking about the importance of long-term care in her session titled Why Individualized Service Provision is Crucial for Long-Term Success. Then we have Alicia Boehm and Caitlin Agnetta, who will be talking about the impact of service gaps on survivors of sex trafficking and exploitation. And then finally, Bridget O'Neill, Dr. Kimberly Hogan, and Dr. Christy McRaney will be presenting on human trafficking training and response protocol development within a community mental health clinic. So lots of great sessions, lots of great things that are going to be talked about. As you can kind of hear from those titles, a lot of that like intersection or overlapping of different ideas within the mental health practitioner setting, and then also the need for long-term care success and for individualized plans. And, those are some of the things that Carrie was even talking about too. So there are going to be many other sessions at the conference that are related to direct practice and are also on other topics that we've been talking about. So we do have our full schedule already up on our website where where you can go. You can read all of the session information, read the presenter bios. We have those sessions categorized by topic and by knowledge level. So everybody can make their schedule what they want it based on their needs. So go to the website. This one specifically is traffickingconference.com/schedule. So, Carrie, thanks again for joining. But is there anything else that you would like to add before we wrap up today?
No, I'm just excited to be with everybody again at the conference. And yeah, if anybody has any questions, feel free to reach out to me at any point. But thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much, Carrie. So as a reminder, we are going to be joining you live on Facebook and LinkedIn every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern time in preparation for our conference. Next week, we will be live with you on Wednesday, and we're going to have two special guests with us, Tatiana Rothschild and Tara Burns. They're going to be joining us to talk about our legal professional and law enforcement sessions at the conference. So that's going to be a really good one. But if you want to learn anything more about the conference, anything we talked about today, how to register, how to look at the schedule, all of that great stuff, go to our website, traffickingconference.com, and you can find all of that there. But thank you again for watching this video, tuning in. Thank you, Carrie, for fitting us into your schedule. So I hope everybody has a great rest of your day, and we will see you next week. Bye.
Bye.